Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. There's been a bunch of devblogs over the last few days, but obviously I've been pretty busy with the dev server. So what I thought is I'll just chuck them all into this video. This video will talk about some of the things mentioned in the devblogs that weren't on the dev server, and also a few additional things too, in terms of what to look forward to in the next update. Another thing to also mention is today I'm going to be playing Space Marine 2 with Freeman and also Dog. We're going to be live streaming it. It's out kind of like early access, so make sure to come and watch it if you're interested in the game. It's one I've been looking forward to for a long time. So we'll be live streaming it on YouTube and also on Twitch. Also at the same time, if you've enjoyed the content over the last few weeks and understand there's going to be a lot more of it coming, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get into the devblogs. First off, we have the Aardvark devblog, and it talks about the F111C and, of course, the F111F. The C is coming to the British tech tree, since it is an Australian version, and the F is coming to the American tech tree. The basic difference between them is the F111C gets 240 countermeasures, which is absolutely crazy for the vehicle, and also the F111F gets more powerful engines. So it gets the TF30P100 engines, which means that it's going to be faster, going to accelerate better, and it'll be interesting to see what the fuel consumption's like, since that's kind of crazy at the same time. The F also has the ability to add extra AGM 65 capabilities, which is of course the Maverick. You can bring the B, the D, and the G, and then both of them together have access to the ANAVQ-26 paved TAC targeting pod, which goes in the center of the machine, and this means they can carry guided munitions in the form of the GBU 10s, 12s, and 24s. This obviously means in a casserole they're going to be incredibly powerful. The other thing that puts them apart from the F111, which is the standard one, the F111A in the American tech tree, is they also get all-aspect missiles, which means that they can be pretty powerful in terms of air-to-air stuff as well with the AIM-9Ls. One thing I do want to highlight is the history of these vehicles, which Gaijin put a lot of effort into, and it is really nice to go through. For the F111C in the 1960s, the Royal Australian Air Force sought to replace their Canberra bombers due to their capability limits and lack of all-weather operation capability. Lacking a capable bomber that could match the Tu-16, the RAAF began searching for a new type that could satisfy its longer-range requirements. Assessments were made of several current and up-and-coming aircraft, such as the A5, F4 Phantom II, the Mirage 4, TSR-2, and then also the TFX program. Political and economical issues steered the RAAF away from the TSR-2, with the economic cost of the Mirage 4 also being a deciding factor. The final winner was the TFX program, which offered to meet all the needs and requirements set out. When the F111 finally emerged from the TFX program, it became clear that the RAAF would require its own modifications to be made to what was to be the B variant, or the naval variant, for it to be accepted. A longer wing design was incorporated, a unique intake redesign, along with some additional changes to radio equipment and undercarriage improvements, were all introduced to the aircraft. Now designated the F111C, the aircraft was officially delivered in 1968, but due to delays, training, and initial teething issues, it was not officially introduced into full service until 1973. Initially, a batch of 24 were produced for Australia, with a further 4 converted from American F111s to the C standard. 4 aircraft in total were also converted to RF-111C reconnaissance aircraft. The F-111C provided the RAAF with capacity to reach Jakarta in Indonesia, something the Canberra and other types previously in service could never achieve. While never seeing direct combats with the RAAF, they came very close in 1991, when they were moved to standby, ready for replacing the F-18s, which were operating in the Gulf War, should they need to be rotated out. However, the war would end before that was necessary. They would be put on standby for possible operations in East Timor with the UN Interfet Force that Australia led during the independence of Timor-Leste from Indonesia. The aircraft served more than 40 years at the hands of the Royal Australian Air Force and finally retired from service in 2010. The F-111F had a slightly more simple history. It was a modernized version of the earlier aardvarks, featuring a more powerful engine and also much higher thrust output over the Standard A. It was operated by the USAF, and the F-Pacer Strike was the final fighter variant of the aircraft produced. As well as the previously mentioned engine improvements, the aircraft was also fitted with the ANAV Q-26 PAVE TAC FLIR target designator, which allowed it to use guided munitions, among other modernizations to its loadout. This variant would serve heavily in the 1991 Gulf War, dropping more laser-guided bombs than any other type of aircraft. The type would successfully fly a high percentage of combat missions, striking their targets and destroying them with a high level of precision, more so than most other Allied coalition aircraft taking part. The F is credited with destroying over 1,000 tanks and armored vehicles during the conflict. 1996 would mark the final retirement of the F variant in USAF service. They also did a devlog for the J-10, which is one of the poster boys of the update, and overall it seems pretty cool. It's one of those vehicles which is a 4+ generation Chinese jet fighter. I really enjoy using generations for these things. But one thing that they do actually confirm is it will use the AL-31FM afterburning turbofan engine. Unfortunately, on the dev server, when it came to it, the engine was labeled as an American one, which would have been hilarious, but obviously wouldn't happen. This vehicle also gets PL5E2s, PL8s, and also PL12s, so generally some pretty decent armaments, and should be super maneuverable, which will be quite nice. One of the things to also mention is they say a testimony to the innovative approach of the J-10A's design was the necessity to develop around 60% of the parts from scratch, and some people took this as 40% of the parts were stolen, which obviously isn't the case. It just means that 40% of the parts were developed off other vehicles, probably Chinese ones, funnily enough, but c'est la vie, that's where we're at. The J-10 is one of the very much high-tier vehicles coming in this update, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. The major issue I can see with it, since it's more of a dogfighting platform, is what will happen in terms of its IRCCM missiles, since it doesn't seem to have any in terms of IR-guided ones. There was also a devlog for the Su-24M, which talked about all of the different armaments that it's going to get. This vehicle is kind of insane in terms of all of its ordnance options. It pretty much gets everything you would ever want for a Soviet vehicle, including all of the KHs, the 23, 25, and 29s, even the 29Ls, and the TEs. You got all the cabs as well, which have turned up, and even the new GNSS bombs. This will be a very fast vehicle, which will be able to plonk ordnance wherever it feels like. The only issue with it, just alongside stuff like the Su-17 and 22, is its defenses aren't exactly the best, and its air-to-air offensive nature is also not great either at its BR. So if this thing ever actually gets attacked, which, let's be honest, will be a lot of the time, it's going to have an issue, and that is the problem with this Su-24M. It does at least have a decent amount of countermeasures and a few R-60Ms to fight back, and a ridiculously firing gun with a insane fire rate on it, but I still don't think that'll be enough to keep it alive. They also did a squadron vehicle devlog for the CV90-35NL. This is coming in for the French, and you'll be able to get the squadron vehicle at rank 6. That means that if you're in a squadron, you can get some squadron RP, get it together, and then research this thing while you're researching through the tree. This vehicle is very similar to the CV90-35DK, which is the premium already in the game for the Swedish. The differences between them are pretty simple. The CV90-35NL has a little bit of additional armor on the sides of it and also on the top of it. This will help against certain low caliber ammunition, but mostly it won't really make a difference. It does still have the spore liner for that added protection, which is quite nice. Because of this added weight, it's a little bit chunkier, so it will be a little bit slower than the DK in terms of acceleration. And the other part of it is the NL has an LWS, or a laser warning system. This means that you'll know when people are laser range finding you or are trying to see you from certain helicopter systems. This is pretty good, and overall will give you increased survivability. Pretty much everything else is exactly the same, which is why now they are the same BR. The last devblog is about French Coastal, and it's talking about how the fleet is going into closed testing in the next major updates. Now, the way that you get access to the closed beta test for the Coastal fleet is either purchasing the VLT2 pack. If you want to purchase it, make sure to use my partner code so you can at least get a discount on it. Or what you do is you can complete some in-game achievements once the update is out, and when you've completed enough of them, the Coastal tech tree will open for you. So overall, you can either get it for free or you can pay for it, just like everything else in War Thunder. In other parts of the devblog, they do talk about different vehicles that are coming. Pretty much all of them have been added to the dev server now, but they also do talk about the fact that a lot of other vehicles from other nations are being put into France, such as the MTB Vosper and also the LCGM. So that could easily mean that these vehicles will come to their respective tech trees too in the future, which I think is pretty obviously going to happen. Also, there is Vedette 40K VTB19. This one is interesting because there are technically 3 separate variants of it if they decided to add them, because it served in 3 separate navies, France, Britain, and also Germany, which is kind of nuts. But that is the end of all of the devblogs that I missed out earlier. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.